That was my hair. I just gave myself a haircut yesterday because today I'm doing my winter prep checklist about everything that has to get done as we transition from summer to fall into the colder weathers. It's a long list. I can't do all of it and show it to you, but I wanted to get started, so we're making the video today. My name is Jill, and you're here at Jill's Nomad Survival, where today we're talking about winter prepping, getting ready for that transition as it starts to get cold. That's where the rat made its new house after I tore down the tires. So I can't show you everything that I do in between now and when it officially starts snowing, but I wanted to give you just an overview, and there's a couple things I want you to think about. One is that if you're not in an environment that's traditionally cold, this might be important as our world is getting colder. We're seeing record early snowfalls. That's one of the reasons I'm talking about the grand solar minimum. And part of what happens is if you live in a city or an urban environment, you lose that shift in your thinking about how you have to actually prepare. If you're living up north, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So there's quite a bit that I do between now and then, and there's short transitional phases. So in terms of the windows, you know, in the summer, they all stay open as much as I can possibly keep them open. In the wintertime, I usually seal them with that tape because every tiny bit of air that you can keep out helps keep the inside warm. And I'll tell you that the last few years I've been leaky central. So this year I really just dug in. I did a bunch of caulking last spring to try to plug up some of the holes in the leaks, the water leaks. But this year I went ahead and stripped the caulk out, recaulked everything, and then repainted. Unfortunately it rained, so the paint ran down the side. Whatever. And I'm just waiting for another big rain to see if I missed any spots, because that's been the only way I've been able to really get it sealed is when you paint and you caulk and then you paint over it. They say 40 years, but it never lasts. I say the last time I did this was about 5 years ago. So it needs to be done on a regular basis. It may not be beautiful, but it makes it much better. The other thing I do is the vents. I have several vents on one side of my trailer, and this is not a recommendation. This is what I do, but each of those vents serves a different purpose. And I'll be honest with you, it was a couple years before I figured out, duh, I'm letting cold air in. And the first one is the heater vent for the propane. I don't use that propane heater. It doesn't work. So I'm okay to vent that off. The second one is overhead where the stove and oven is. I don't use the oven, so I go ahead and vent that one off because it's tiny. And the third one is where the refrigerator was, backing up against the wall, needing that vent from the outside. I don't have a refrigerator there, so that one came out too. That other thing that you're looking at is the water heater, and while that does work, I don't have running water in my trailer, so it's irrelevant. Also, you know, the biggest issue that most people have to think about is their pipes. And one of the reasons I just drain into the dirt, or that fabulous blue thing I have, I bought that to shower in, and then it didn't work, so I just used it to collect my gray water, because what I learned is those traditional RV tubes that you put out for your gray and your black is when they freeze, because they are plastic, they break, and that's just really gross. So I don't exit out with that. I just let it run. It means that there's less likely to be freezing problem. I don't actually have water running into the trailer. Water runs out. But those pipes stay a little bit closer in, so I haven't had any trouble with things freezing and backing up. Now, over winter, I will see ice come out of there, but it's a pretty big hole, and I try to run hot water out of there to get it cleared out every day. So that's some of the prepping that I do for that area. So that's kind of the outside. The inside, I hauled in all my heaters from last year and tested them all. So far, they are working. I think I have 6 heaters. That is a whole discussion in itself. I do heat with electric heat. I, knock on wood, have not had the electricity go out for any length of time in the wintertime where that's compromised me as a safety issue. Makes me very uncomfortable because we've had some major power outages this last year. It's been in the warmer weather, so it wasn't a problem. But I did have a situation last year where the power pole and all the area around that froze up with real slick kind of ice. I'd never seen it before. Shut everything down for quite some time. I had to take the hair dryer out there to chip it off and dry it out, and then things worked again. I try to cover those my electrical lines, mostly because the cows are coming back to the side so they don't trip over them. However, I have had the mice or the rats eat on them this last year. That's new. One of the things that you should do that I have completely failed at in my time is make sure that the mice can't get in. I have a hole somewhere that I've spent 4 years looking for. I cannot find it. So I was just this morning keeping myself awake, last night and this morning, devising the next plan to try to keep them out from the invisible hole. I only kind of think I know where they're coming in, but good time of year because as it gets colder outside, they move in. I think I actually have one that's moved in, but I can't catch it. Normally, I trap it and can get it out right away. Sneaky little guy this one is. Then there's just the other inside stuff. There's the bedding to be changed out. There's making sure that your windows are caulked and sealed from the inside. Also, here are just some essential tips that I've learned the hard way. Sometimes I keep food and things outside. Any kind of glass bottle filled with liquid, meaning apple cider vinegar, if it freezes, expands, and explodes, stinks really bad. So anything that you're keeping outside because the temperatures are unstable might be a problem. Things like batteries, like glass bottles, anything that the cold kills needs to come inside and off the floor if you really don't want it to be cold. There's a pretty significant difference between what's going on the floor in the trailer and what's going on in the middle and then what's going on the ceiling. If you don't know that because you're living in a metal box, the cold condenses, it freezes, condenses, melts, and drips. So you always have some water issues along your roof. So that is part of the reality of living in a metal box is that it gets cold. What kind of insulation you have, things like that will make a big difference. Some of the other switches, there's the closing switch out. I'm a big flannel sheet person. That's been switched out. The boots, the shoes have been switched out. The reason I talked about cutting my hair is I have taken it on as a personal challenge to see if I can get through the whole year by still washing my hair outside. I made it last year. Last year was the first year I did not have to go somewhere to somebody else's house and wash my hair. But to do that, I have to flip my head over and just, not get water on me and my hair. So I have to cut my hair to make sure it's lighter and shorter so I can get all the soap out, because the longer it is, the harder it is to just pour water over it. I know that part's really important and exciting. The other thing I wanted to share really quickly, if you're like me and you don't have a lot of money, you have to become very creative. And some of the ways that I found to do insulating, my number one is cardboard. I've shared in my other winter video. I put cardboard under the bed because as it gets colder, the mattress, because there's a hollow space underneath the bed, and so the cold under there hits the warm in the mattress from your body heat, creates condensation, and it can become moldy. And it was $150 to buy a mat underneath. Didn't have that. Put some good heavy-duty corrugated cardboard underneath. Works perfect. Have not had a problem since. But cardboard is a cheap insulator that you can get for free, and so you can put that on the floor, you can put that in the wall, you can put it anywhere if you need help. The other big things I like are that aluminum tape that I showed you that goes around the windows. I use that for almost everything now. Also caulk, but make sure it has some silicone in it if you're going to use caulk, because the trailer moves so much in driving, or the wind or the flexibility, it breaks everything apart, which is part of the reason why you have to do repairs more often. It's a good time of year to check and make sure your roof is good. I thought I had sealed my roof. The water hit the paint, blew it off down the side of the trailer. So we're still waiting to see how that goes. We're supposed to have big rain in the next few days, so I'm hoping to see if I missed any spots outside. So that's kind of what I do to prep. It's also a mindset. Everything changes. How I get water changes. How I spend my day changes. Some of the other things to think about, which is part of this, you know, living wild, is how you park. The south side, my main windows face south, and I can create much more warmth with the passive heat. In the wintertime, if it's above freezing and it's not cloudy outside, I don't have to turn the heater on all day. Just the passive heat is plenty to warm up my trailer. So those are just some of the ways of thinking about things differently. It's definitely more labor intensive because the rats and the rabbits and the mice and whatever, even the birds have moved into some of the engines of my truck. And so everything wants to come inside. So you're doing much more battle trying to keep the wildlife out of your stuff. But I say in the end, it's worth it. So that's just a little bit about what I do to prep for winter. Tossing it back to you to see what you do. If you have any good ideas that I haven't suggested for other people, put them in the comments below. So I want to say thank you for spending this time with me, and we'll see you next time. Hi, Neil.